So I almost didn't make it here, and I didn't want to like drive and text you when I texted you that I'm on my way, but I almost didn't make it here.
Wow.
And I don't want to sound like overly dramatic, but like, so I'm on my way here, and there's this dude like really hauling ass on a bike, but not like a Harley Davidson or even one of those crotch rockets. It's like one of those Meek Mill like dirt bikes, I want to say. Yeah. And he's hauling it, right? And then he cuts off an SUV that's literally in front of me. So I'm literally a car space between whatever's going on between the guy in the SUV and this dude. And at the light, the dude starts like yelling at the guy in the SUV, and the guy rolls down the window. I can see it plain as day, and he flicks him off, shows him the universal love language of "I love you" with one finger. and then homeboy in the bike gets really, really mad, and he starts revving the bike, ring, ring, and he's not going, and he's like blocking him off, and I'm like, what is going on right now? So I'm just like, I hope it doesn't turn ugly, because then I'm the witness and I don't know what's going on. And this is happening so fast, right? And then I see him like go into his duffel. Yo, I literally thought in that moment, I'm like, if this man pulls out a gun, I am going to lose it because I don't have my weapon, right? So I'm like, I hope he really doesn't do that. And then he just kind of like adjusts his duffel. So I don't know if he was just kind of like messing with the guy or whatever, but they were at a standstill and the light was green and everybody was just like paused. And I'm like, should we go? Should we not? This man is yelling from the top of his lungs, like yelling at this man. The guy in the SUV steps out of his vehicle. I'm like, oh, here we go. Someone's gonna call 911, and then I'm not gonna make it to the shop, bro. And then I'm literally getting ready to either call you or call Jojo. Jojo's on the camera, by the way. Shouts to Jojo. And I'm like, what is going on right now? This is not happening. Like, I have a podcast to shoot, bro. And it was close. They cut it really close. And that's why I was a couple minutes late. And that's why I was late. And I'm using that as my excuse tonight. That's my story. I'm going to stick to it. But no, it really did happen. I promise you. It was crazy because then the guy gets in because everybody started honking. The light's still green and everybody's trying to go. Homeboy does a wheelie. Like he really thinks he's Meek Mill out in these streets. Yeah. And he does a wheelie and he's out of here. And I'm just like, bro, like the theatrics was not necessary, bro. Because I literally thought he was going to pull out the hammer. And I'm like, bruh, this ain't drumline. I don't got a hammer, bro. I was like, yo, this is crazy. But I'm excited for tonight. Super excited because I got my friend Christine in the building. Hey. Hi. I think you could get a round of applause for that, though. We're going to do a round of applause. We're going to give you a double round of applause. And very excited about today's episode. Because I get to kick it with my friend who's not a guy, because I know people out there saying that I'm biased and I'm turning this into a guy show. But I've had females on the show. Okay. I really have. I actually had a series about My Life Continues with a Woman's Perspective. I think that's what the series was called. I can't remember now. And I had like 5 beautiful, inside and out, beautiful ladies share their story, share the things that they needed to share, and it was awesome. Got a lot of traction on it. I got a lot of people really bigging it up, like, oh, it was great that you had a female on to get like a female's perspective on a lot of things, and et cetera, et cetera. And I want to continue doing that throughout this, especially in 2023. I want to be very intentional to giving women a voice, and I wanted to give that opportunity to Christine today or tonight. To just give us a perspective on what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into conversation, I just want to introduce Christine. She goes to my church, so that's the one thing we have in common. You are 29.
I am 29.
29, and she loves Jesus. And I'm going to allow her to formally introduce herself for those who are listening and watching.
Hi, Hi, so I'm Christine. I'm 29 years old. I'm originally from New Jersey.
Hey, Jersey in the house. Let's go. I think that gets an air horn.
And I moved to Florida when I turned 16. I moved in with my dad.
Nice.
Finished high school down here. Then I went away for a year and a half in college, actually in Vermont. Random state, I know. And then I transferred, moved back to Florida, finished college down here, and I kind of never left. I always been thinking about leaving, and then God always tells me, no, you gotta be here just a little bit longer, because I think He has a purpose for me down here. I still don't know that purpose yet, but I'm just enjoying the ride, basically. So.
Yeah, and I tell everybody, and I tell this to myself, like a lot of us young adults really fail at allowing ourselves to enjoy the ride.
Right.
To enjoy the moment. And I think it's because, and we always touch on this because we can't avoid the fact that social media drives culture now.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy to say that, but in 2023 it's pretty safe to say that social media, on all social media platforms, it kind of does gauge the societal standard. You know, Jose calls it the Kardashian effect.
Yeah.
And we're currently still living that until something else, pops up, and it's another generational thing. But the Kardashian effect is a real thing. A lot of social media influencers are starting to look like her.
Well, we're in this BBL era.
Yeah, BBL era,
and
OnlyFans era.
OnlyFans era, and
JoJo's giving me a face, but it's true.
And actually, it does take a toll on mental health. These young girls coming up, they're looking at social media every day, and they're comparing themselves, their natural bodies, and they want to look like the Kim Kardashians, the Cardi B's, the Nicki Minaj's. So, even for me, I was like insecure about some things. I said maybe I should nitpick and tweak, and actually I decided to take a social media cleanse, and
That's a real thing.
That was the most healthiest thing for my mental health. And I'm actually thinking about doing it again soon, because it's important to get back to reality. Social media is just temporary. You just go there because you're bored. If you can look at the data of just how much you spend on a day, I think the iPhones have that, or I didn't mute that notification because it was embarrassing, but you can see how much you spend in 1 week or 1 day on your phone. And so I think it's so important to kind of take a step back and saying, do I really need to be on this platform? I could use my time and learn other things, other avenues, be more present at work, and just kind of go from there. So I'm planning on taking a fast on social media soon. Yeah,
I think it's good to do that. I try to do it, but because I'm a content creator, I kind of do it intermittently. So like I won't go on social media in the evenings so much, because in the evenings your mind does wander. You do go on pages you're not supposed to as a Christian man. So a lot of us have triggers, and we all deal with lust. I've had an episode here with my buddy Mike a year ago when I was trying to get this show off his feet, and we had a pornography episode where I think I titled it Addicted to Porn or something like that, and that got a lot of traction.
Oh wow.
And we just talked about, because I had an addiction. Well, not only did I have a substance addiction, but I had a legitimate porn addiction where I needed to watch porn. I would go home, and that used to be like part of my regimen. Like I would cook, I would meal prep, and then I'll watch like 15 minutes of porn, and then I'll go work out, or I'll do it in a different order, or whatever the case may be. I would be at work and watch porn on my break. It was really bad. It was like controlling my mental. And it
became like part of your routine.
it just became part of my life, and it was crazy how I started picking up on things when I was so deep in it. And my wake-up call was when I was working for this company, who shall remain nameless because I no longer work for them. But I remember I went to on the work vans that they used to give us, and I was on the work van, inside the work van, and I was on my break, and I had the urge to just watch a quick little 3-minute joint, you know,
quick,
something quick,
and quickie, quick.
And my manager opened the van to see what I was doing, and he saw and heard what I was watching, and I almost lost my job because of pornography. And it was that moment of like fear of losing my job, the moment of shame and embarrassment, all clumped up into one, like made me realize that I had a problem. And in that shame kind of dragged out that remainder of the week, and then it started dragging out for the remainder of the month, and then it dragged out to the remainder of my tenure there.
Oh wow!
It just changed me, and then that's when I knew that I needed to take action with dealing with that. And the only way that I was able to kill that sin and kill that addiction was to make it public. So I started making it public in private spectrums. Like I would go to small groups and I would share my struggle, and I would get accountability, and I would set systems in place to help me with this addiction. And it helped. And the more that I got closer to the Lord, and the more I understood what pornography did to your brain, synthetically and chemically, I started seeing the ugly side of it, that I was so turned off by it, because synthetically you are releasing endorphins that you have no business releasing, because the only time you're supposed to be releasing that chemical out of your brain is when you're actually having the physical interaction with another human being. And because you're synthetically releasing that with no interaction with a human being, it does something to your brain that it's very similar to what hard drugs do, like cocaine, heroin, and stuff like that. So when I started learning and doing more research on that, made me want to stop even more. Like it just motivated me, encouraged me, and it empowered me to kick that habit. And it's with any habit. Like if you really want to kick an addiction, like you have to have that sense of empowerment in order to say no to your addiction, whether it be alcohol or narcotics or whatever the case may be, because you can't really do it for other people. You have to ultimately do it for yourself.
I agree.
And put in the work.
I agree. And you probably helped so many people by sharing your story, and so many men. So that's actually encouraging and empowering to help, because by sharing your story, you definitely help probably a lot of men. So
and that's not what we're really going to talk about, but I just wanted to share that a little bit for anybody that wants to learn a little bit more about that. Go back to the I forget what episode it was, but it was the early episodes of the show. So get on the show and look for that one. It's pretty interesting. Mike had a lot of insight, because he actually did a term paper for his college paper on pornography.
Oh wow!
And so that was pretty cool that he shared that. So it was great perspective on that. So, but we are ready to kick off episode 62, ladies and gentlemen. 62, man. And very, very honored and privileged to have Christine on. So you said you're from Jersey.
Yes.
And you've been living here for about...
basically half my life.
Half your life.
I kind of just made the decision. One summer I was visiting my dad, and I kind of like looked at the bigger spectrum at 16 and said, well, okay, where can I improve in my life? And I wanted to go to a better education, and I decided to talk to my dad first. And I said, hey, Dad, can I live with you? And he's like, you got to talk to your mom, but And so I had that awkward, uncomfortable conversation with my mom, and she... because your mom still is in Jersey. So yeah, my parents are divorced.
Right.
So I had that uncomfortable, because at that time with divorced parents, as a child, you feel like you have to pick a side. And I think I grew up struggling with that, because I felt like I had to live a double life. Yeah. So I wanted to have that relationship with my dad and see what that was like, but I couldn't if I was to live with my mom. Yeah. So I had to make that decision. So once I did it was probably the best decision for me because that opened up the doors of like, I guess, my destiny on where that path leads me to. So it was a rocky roller coaster a little bit, but I ended up going to a good high school. I went to Vermont for a year and a half, but that was a roller coaster in itself. And I can dive in a little bit for that. But then I moved back to Florida, and I think God sent me back to Florida for a reason. So definitely grateful to be back
And
here.
in that process, were you always a believer?
I was lukewarm.
You were lukewarm.
So I grew up in a Catholic home. My mom is Catholic, and I never connected in the Catholic faith because it was very slow. And I really thought, is this the way that I'm supposed to have a relationship
They're
with
very
God?
fundamentalists and stuff, and very traditionalists.
Very.
So it's more religion versus relationship.
And I had to go based off of obligation, not because I had to go. I mean, because I wanted to go. So when I moved to Florida permanently, my dad went to a non-denominational church, and it was just high energy. I see people, you know, just getting saved, and the praise and worship team was just awesome. And I connected with the bishop and like everything that they would preach, but I still felt like for me, I still didn't feel that connection with God. Even though I felt the spirit of the Holy Spirit, I just never felt that connection with him. So, and plus I was trying to live my own life. I was trying to have my own path. Like I'm a planner. So by nature, when I have a plan, I had like a 5-year goal, 10-year goal, a 30-day, plan.
You have short-term goals.
I have short-term goals.
With the long-term.
When my plans are
Which is nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
But when my plan doesn't go my way, and it kind of pivots, it puts me in a shell. So, but I didn't realize that was God moving at that time. I was still blinded. So it wasn't until, and I lived a pretty, I don't want to say selfish life, but I guess I was reckless with my life, and I didn't realize it at the time.
We all were.
So I learned the fundamentals and tools in high school because I went to a private school, and they teach you all these things before you go. But then when you leave, and plus I had this double life between Jersey and Florida, it's like I reverted back to the ways how I was when I was in Jersey. So everything kind of left when I went to Vermont. And that's when I had all this freedom. I didn't have family, and I was in a new state and living with other teenagers, and I had to figure it all out.
Wow.
And the reckless part came is that every weekend, we would go out, party.
Yeah, the typical college.
But this was a dry
college
campus.
Life.
Hold on, this was a dry campus.
Was it?
So, I went to a half military, half civilian college. I was in the civilian side.
Oh, wow.
So they were very strict.
With the partying and the
no
drinking.
No alcohol on campus, no drugs on campus.
Wow.
And so at that point, everything was heightened. I'm like, okay, what can we do to have fun? Because it felt like I was in rehab.
Or prison.
So the first 6 weeks, a bunch of us just went crazy.
Like naturally you rebel when there's rules and regulations in a system set in place where you're like, this is not fun. Let's have our own fun.
But I didn't realize that God was protecting me then, because 6 weeks in, the football team, they just won their homecoming game, and there was this big house up in the woods, far out. There's this guy that owned a family home. Up in the up in the woods, and he had acres of land. Beautiful home, and he hosted his party there because they wanted to celebrate. So a bunch of us girls gathered together, got ready, started pre-gaming.
This sounds like a Netflix movie.
So, we leave.
I hope nobody got murdered.
Well.
Jeez. Oh my God.
And so we get to the party. It is wild. Wild. And at this point...
Like when you say wild, is it like Project X wild?
Project X wild, but I couldn't even...
So someone literally jumped off the roof.
I don't remember remember.
And missed the pool? Is that what happened?
I don't think there was a pool.
Okay.
But the house was so packed, like you couldn't even breathe. But we found a way to maneuver. And
the bathroom became outside. Got it.
All I remember was like going in, having fun, but I don't remember leaving. And that's where everything went black.
Oh, wow. Good times.
No, I woke up in a hospital.
Girl.
And I thought that my friends took me to the hospital to basically stomach, like I thought, like that, what do they call it?
Alcohol poisoning?
Alcohol poisoning. That's what I thought happened to me because I had 2 IVs. I remember just laying and seeing this white light. Yeah. And I said, is this my time? Like, you know, because you're just waking up and you're getting, like, you see this white light and you're like, okay,
Lord, is this you?
Is this you? Come to find out, as I'm getting, you know, my vision back, I look down and I see literally like 2 IVs and I'm in so much pain.
Wow.
And I just remember like, what happened? Like, what happened? The nurse comes in, who, by the way, was very rude. Very rude. Because she walks in and
shame on you, nurses are rude.
She was so mean because she was like, you were in a car accident.
Oh, boy.
And there was a lot of people that were hurt.
Uh-oh.
And like just guilt shaming. This is like 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I was confused. I was like, how did this happen? And so from 5 a.m. to maybe like 7 a.m., I was just there like laying on this bed and I had to call my parents. Like I had to call my dad and my mom at separate times to tell them, hey, I was in a car accident. No, because I didn't have ID on me.
Wow.
So I had to call my mom, like panicking, freaking out. And then I called my dad, crying hysterically.
Yikes.
And then I just remembered being on that bed and I just closed my eyes and I just prayed to God and I said, all right, I'm okay. Like at the end of the day, I'm like, I'm okay. I'm hoping everyone else that was in this car accident, that was okay too.
Yeah.
And
man, you're giving me chills right now.
It
was like literally you're flirting with death.
I'm flirting with death, and
that's the name of the episode, by the way.
Yeah.
Flirting with death.
And I haven't told this story in about 10 years.
Wow. So you're in this hospital.
I'm in this
you
hospital.
have IVs plugged in you. 2 of them.
2 of them.
You're not knowing what's going on till the nurse tells you what had happened, and you're wondering if there's innocent bystanders that are hurt at this particular moment. Wow.
And I was praying heavily because at this point,
how old were you at the time?
18.
Oh my goodness, that's traumatic.
18, and I just left. Like I said, so from having the summer of my life, quote unquote,
yeah.
Then going to college, and then just
getting into that
incident. Every weekend was just a wild roller coaster.
Wow.
And we were reckless. I thought I was invincible, that I couldn't be touched.
Now, was alcohol like your vice when you were going there at that particular juncture?
I think what really got to me was that I just wanted to fit in. I never really had a group of like friends.
Right? Yeah.
I never said I was an outcaster, but I never felt like I had genuine connections with people.
Yeah, that was similar to me. Like when you're young, you just want to experience the college life, and then when you start seeing people pop pills and then start drinking, and it just becomes normalized. It's like, oh, this is the norm. You know, the occasional perk and getting wasted. Yeah. It's part of the life, and then it becomes like part of you.
Part of me. Yeah. And I think at some point I did fall under peer pressure.
Yeah, all of us do.
And it's that probably weighed a lot on me with the guilt.
Yeah,
so then fast forwarding to my RA picked me up from the hospital. Because a lot of people thought I died that night.
Oh my goodness.
Because they didn't know who got hurt. They said, so she picks me up, and then that was probably the worst 30-minute car ride from the hospital because no one in the hospital can disclose what happened.
Right. Patient.
So patient confidentiality.
Yes.
So I was panicking, freaking out. And I actually remember blurry moments of being in the hospital and being with other people that were in the car, but it was such a blur. Like I vaguely remember it. So when I left, when I was finally discharged, mind you, I finally saw myself in the mirror for the first time. I had this Harry Potter scar on my forehead, and I had like whiplash pain, and I just had a concussion, and that was pretty much it for my injuries. So I'm thinking, you know, worst case scenario, someone probably has a broken arm or a broken leg or something like that. So when my RA was telling me what happened, she said, you were in a 5-car passenger filled with 8 people inside the car. The party got out of hand, cops were called, and they were just trying to scatter people into cars as fast as they can.
Wow.
And also, if you're underage, you can get fined. So they were really trying to get people out as if any like underage of drinking like out as possible, fast as possible. So I ended up in a car with the driver. He was drunk beyond limits, and it was raining that night. And the house is up on a hill. So then when you're coming, he's speeding at this point, and when you're going down, there's a bunch of trees and there's like a steep hill. So as the car is coming down, he's supposed to turn and curve. He kept going straight.
Oh, wow.
So when he kept going straight, there's a bunch of trees, and we hit those trees on impact. And then what was really crazy about that is that the car was parked at the end before a house. So there was a house right here. The car ended up here. And they say because maybe the floor was wet, it was able to hold. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
Beyond that, there was a steeper hill where everyone could have died.
Wow.
But because the car was parked right there, and there was some blockage that it didn't kept going. And she also told me that the driver got out of the car and he just ran off because he didn't know what happened.
Wow.
The first responders were the people at the party trying to save us that was in the car. So they were calling for 911, but they were like, let's do what we can and help the kids that were in the car. So the list of injuries was, I had one of my good friends, he was in a coma. They induced him in coma because he had like basically almost everything broken.
Yeah.
The girl, his ex-girlfriend at the time, or his girlfriend at the time, sat on his lap on the right passenger side where the most of the impact happened. She played basketball.
Yeah.
She had a scholarship, and both her legs were broken.
Oh my goodness.
And then I sat in the middle back seat, and I was on someone's lap, and I broke his jaw because of impact. So his jaw was wired shut for like maybe I don't know how long. I want to say a month maybe or so. But because he was holding on to me for dear life to make sure I was okay, I think I just kind of
smacked back. Yeah.
And then in the front, there was a girl that had her shoulder and like glass charted all over her.
Sheesh.
And then one of my good friends who I connected with in that 6 weeks, we lived right across each other, like we were right across the hall.
Basically neighbors.
So we were starting to build a friendship. And we were just connecting, we were clicking. I remember rooming with her for a week, just because there was just this goofy friendship. And unfortunately, she passed.
Oh, wow.
And that hit me like a ton of bricks because our last conversation, like a heart-to-heart conversation that we had, it was me, her, and another girl that was in the car accident, the girl that broke her legs. We were all talking about like, why do good people die young? That's our last conversation. Sheesh. Like before we took a nap, before we started getting ready for the day or the night, we had that heart-to-heart conversation. We all shared on who we knew about, oh, this person died young and they had so much potential. Yeah. And she shared her story about her uncle. And I just remember thinking to myself, that was the last conversation that I had with her that was so deep. And I had so much guilt, like survivor's guilt. Yeah. Because naturally, yeah. So I remember going back on campus and I ran right to her room and I remember just screaming, like, it's just giving me like goosebumps thinking about it, just because I don't want to say I relive it now because I moved past it. I've done the healing, I've done the work, but just to do a play-by-play like that, and having to then go to her funeral or her wake, and she looked like she was sleeping. Like, I think the last image of her for me was, it wasn't sad because the way that she looked so beautiful, at peace. Yeah. It was a horrible ending, but at least I can visually say, like, I don't remember anything that night. Yeah. I feel like because I drank so much, and I feel like God, I don't know if it's a God thing, or my mom even said it. She was like, you know what? Like, I'm kind of happy you don't remember what happened that night, because that could have been more traumatizing for you. Right. To recall every single detail. Like, I could read the police report and say, like, I can see what happened, but I can't recall it. Wow. So, it was pretty much, that was the beginning stages of my reckless life, in a sense of, like, it wasn't, like, I didn't wake up, let's just say, right then and there, because I thought,
And you would think that traumatic event would wake someone up and say, hey, I got to slow down. Well, I got to stop my drinking.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I was encouraged to stay up there. While everyone went home, I stayed. And I think that I didn't know anything about therapy. I didn't know anything about grief therapy, or they didn't encourage me to.
So you were essentially numbing the pain with substance.
I'm numbing the pain with relationship. That's when I got my first boyfriend. 10 days out. Wow. He became my God at that point, because I'm using, it's a trauma love. It's a trauma bond. He decided to kind of be my knight shining armor. And besides taking the time and walking away and leaving the school and taking care of myself, I was encouraged to stay up there, figure it all out.
And then got involved with...
And I got involved with
being in a relationship.
And being in a relationship. And then when that ended the same month. Like, basically it ended the same month of my car accident. So it's a double whammy at this point of emotions. And at that point, I said, I need to leave. Like, I'm wasting money, time. I need to go. Because I switched majors 3 times. Wow. So I didn't know what to do. Right. I was lost. Wow. And at that point, I was running away from my issue. I didn't face it head on. So I was masking a lot of trauma. And then when I moved to Florida, it just kind of, it didn't go away, basically.
Wow. So you were just navigating through it all, even, and it's interesting too, because like when we go through traumatic events like that, and we don't know how to cope with it, how to heal, how to seek help, how to even go through the process of grieving and going through therapy, and we think that going to a new environment, a new state, a new outside, if you will, like that's going to help. But you bring your problems with you.
Absolutely.
You don't leave them behind state lines. Yeah. Like, so wherever you go, your pain comes with you.
It follows.
It follows you. And when you don't know how to navigate through that, you tend to gravitate to people who are like there also. That's why that phrase, misery loves company. Yeah. Like what you kind of connect with people who are just not knowing what they're doing. They're kind of lost in life. They're trying to find a thing to fill their emptiness, because at the end of the day, you created a hole in your soul that you're trying to fill, and we don't realize that void that we're trying to fill is Jesus shaped. Right. And we try to fill it with other things, whether it be people, relationships, substance, whatever, fill in the blank. And it's not until we are literally scraping in the bottom of the barrel in life, and the only thing we can do is look up, and that's when Jesus kind of comes in the picture and says, are you ready for me to take you out of the mud pit? Right. Because I have the ability to do so. You're just going to have to let me do it. Right. And just look at Joe in the Bible, Joseph. Yeah. We do remember when he was, thriving in the palace, but before he even got to the palace, he was in the mud pit. and he was sold to slavery by his own family, and his own brothers tried to kill him. You know what I'm saying? So like, we forget that, man, I need to just seek help. And if I call myself a believer and I believe in God and I have this, even if it's at its minuscule state, like if you believe in a God,
right,
that there is a higher power,
right,
and that's your journey, you're gonna learn real quick that God is Jesus, and he's going to do some radical things in your life to get you out that mud pit,
right,
and put you on the right track, because I believe that there's no sin that we are in that offends him.
Right.
There's nothing that we do that could offend him. That's how lavishly he loves us. That's how boundless his grace is, how boundless his love is, essentially. So that's an incredible story. So thank you for sharing, because I actually wanted to get into what events or things that happened in your past, teaches us, because I wanted to touch on that. And so looking back, do you feel that was a life lesson that was worth learning?
I mean, definitely. I mean, unfortunately at that time I still didn't get it, because I took back my will of like, because I ran away from that, I can still
run away somewhere else,
navigate and take control of my own life. Yeah. It's kind of taking control of my own destiny.
Right.
So, and I was no different than the driver. If you think about it, he just made a horrible decision, and we all make mistakes. And I forgave him a long time ago, but to say and put all the blame on him, I could say maybe when I was 22, 21, maybe 23, I drove home drunk before, and I was no different.
We all have.
Yeah, and I could have easily either killed myself or hurt somebody else in that process, and I would have maybe no different than the person that hurt me and my friends.
Yeah.
So my wake-up call probably wasn't until, and I don't want to say I have a problem or anything. I think my trauma has just always followed me.
Yeah.
But the lessons that I learned is just to let go of things that are out of my control.
That's powerful.
And just let God be the sole provider of my life. And it's hard, because I literally try to take back my will every day.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It's not. I mean, living the Christian life is dying to yourself every day. Like the minute you're blessed to wake up, because that's another thing, man. Like, and I know that this conversation is deep, but I love these conversations because it reminds me of like deep conversations that I had in the past. You know, I remember one time this guy at an old church of mine said, "Hey, let's not look too far ahead, and we don't have any business looking in our past, because the more we look in the past, the more we find identity in it, and there's no need for us to identify ourselves in our mistakes, because we are not our mistakes, we are not our past. We shouldn't identify as such." And I remember this like if it was yesterday. He told me, "Remember that someone today didn't wake up." And I was like,
it's funny
because someone today didn't wake up.
And as I was driving to my dentist appointment today on the highway, there was a horrible accident. And normally around 11 o'clock, everyone's at work or it's pretty empty. And as I'm driving, it's backed up, and I saw the traffic. It was a wreck, basically, like 5 different cars were hit. And I remember seeing the corner of my eye, like a policeman or the first responders putting like a big drape, what looked like on someone's body. And it's just like...
That's uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, it's like we wake up and thinking that there's a guarantee that we'll make it back home. And I think we don't... For me, I'm guilty of it. I keep forgetting to just be grateful in the moments and have so much gratitude because we are not promised for tomorrow. I mean, we might not even wake up tomorrow. It's not a guarantee.
Right.
And so I just remember looking over and I'm just like, thank God I'm hoping I can get to my destination safely, because that person most likely didn't.
Yeah.
So I had to keep reminding myself to be humble and to be grateful and just be appreciative of just having where I am, like where I'm at today. Because for some reason, I've always had this fuel of it's not very enough. I need to keep going. I need to keep being hungry for more and more and more. And I couldn't appreciate my accolades that I've, came so far that I couldn't even stop to appreciate those, because I'm always worried about the next best.
And I think worrying too much about the next best thing and worrying about that it's not enough. I gotta go get mine. I'm this. I gotta get this. I gotta accomplish this. I gotta reach this goal, and it goes on and on and on, and then we forget, man, we have to keep an attitude of gratitude.
Yes.
Because when we don't humble ourselves, when we don't have that gratitude of just the gratitude of life,
right?
Man, me as a Christian, I'm always praying every day, God, thank you for the clothes on my back. Thank you for providing a roof over my head. Thank you for allowing me to be a blessing to others. Thank you for blessing me. Thank you, Lord, for just waking me up because someone didn't wake up today.
Right.
All those things, I kind of bless his name. I bless God because he blesses me. And we just need to do that more often, because I believe that if we get caught up in trying to get into that go-getter mentality and that hustler mentality, which is actually nothing wrong with that, but if you make that your idol, then that's when you're treading in gray
territory.
Yes.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
So I think when you get to that gray area, you miss the move of God.
Yes.
You're gonna miss the move of God when you're too worried about the next move.
Yeah.
What's my next move? What's the next project I get into? What's the next business venture? It's nothing wrong with being ambitious. It's just that making that your idol is where you kind of tread in really rough, hairy areas. So I think there has to be most certainly a happy medium in there.
Right.
Because if you're just so focused on self, because that's all self.
Right.
You're doing things for the benefit of self. You tend to miss the move of God.
Yes.
And I don't want to do that. I don't want to miss the move of God, because if you miss the move of God, you possibly are robbing yourself from being the move of God. Think about it, because the Bible even illustrates it so well. He uses his children to bless others. The commission is make disciples of all nations, right? If we're being discipled and we're calling ourselves Christians, who are we discipling? Who are we mentoring? And who's our mentor? Because we have to be a mentee, you know what I mean? And I think that's the life that God wants us to live, so we can be at a healthy state, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Because if we don't, and if we deviate from that, I feel that it's so easy to fall into comparisons, because we're constantly on our phone, and then we're checking on people's Instagrams, and we're watching their highlights, and then we not necessarily we consciously do that, but I do believe in to a degree we subconsciously do that.
Yeah, it's like a muscle memory.
Exactly. No, seriously. And then you drop the phone, and then you're wondering why you're in a funk.
Yeah.
And it's because you were the past hour and a half you were watching everybody's highlights. And then you're wondering how come you haven't been to Costa Rica, or you haven't been to Dubai yet. You know what I'm saying?
And it makes you, it almost kind of consumes you. And then at the end of the day, I really don't care what you're doing. It's just because it's a convenient thing.
Correct.
So I had to come to realization of, I honestly like to go on social. My algorithm has changed so much now.
Yeah, mine too.
I like food stuff. I like anime stuff. And
food's a big one for me.
And I kind of just keep it there, because if I try to one travel post or one fitness post, it's gonna be my algorithm, and then I'm gonna compare, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that.
Like, why am I not in Dubai right now in a yacht partying with my friends?
Yeah.
I would love to have that one day. It's still on my bucket list, but I'm not moving mountains to get there. You know what I'm saying?
But it almost makes me wonder, what's the behind the scenes of how did you get to that point? Like, there's always those little mysteries, I think.
I could almost tell you, some, like, for me,
like, I have an idea.
I have an idea, and like, people are gonna like rag on me when I mention this individual's name, but Andrew Tate, for example, right? He's been in everybody's algorithm, whether you like it or not. And Andrew Tate would literally expose that whenever he sees a young lady out in Dubai, the behind the scenes is the reason why she's out there in Dubai is because she sold her soul to the devil. And not literally, but metaphorically, meaning she did something to get that as a reward. And the person behind that reward is this, 55, 65-year-old, CEO that likes how she looks, and he can have fun with her. So he's going to take her out on this trip where he has a penthouse in Dubai, and he could rent a yacht for a weekend and have some fun. And Andrew Tate exposed that a little bit. I don't know how much of the truth that is. So I'm not going to take everything that he says gospel, but he's a man that's pretty well off. He's wealthy. He knows that lifestyle, and he exposed it because he wanted to expose the women that are doing that. But that's some of the behind the scenes in that point of view, in that aspect of, but reality, we don't know. You may be a young lady that's a CEO and that could afford going there. And so I'm not going to go, off a limb and say, the reason why you're there is because you met this dude. And this, you know what I'm saying?
I never want to make assumptions.
Yeah, that you finessed this dude to get you to go to Dubai and Morocco and Paris and all these things. I'm not going to go off a whim and say that, but these are the things that are said on different platforms from bigger influencers than me and my little podcast. So, but
I think, well, you know what? That's where it goes back to the mental health thing, because then you compare yourself, like, I want to be there, but then at the end of the day, like, going back to gratitude, just to be able to, because I'm taking a Euro trip with girlfriends. Like, I've worked hard for that. Like, that's accomplishment for me to just be able to say that, because at the end of the day, like, I can compare my life to others, but I'm like, if I want to go do something, I'm going to work hard to obtain it and do it and treat it for myself.
For sure. So guys, work hard.
Work hard.
And gift yourself a nice trip to Europe, because that's also on my bucket list. There's nothing wrong with traveling. I'm not trying to put a negative stigma on people who go to Dubai or Costa Rica or Dominican Republic or Morocco and Paris. I'm not trying to put a negative stigma. But these things do happen, they do happen. But like you said, you're a hard worker. You are rewarding yourself to go to this trip with your loved ones, who are your friends, close friends, I would assume.
They're close friends. And I think there's something, for me, it's just a reward thing. It's a full circle, because when I went to Europe for the first time, I was 18. And I really didn't appreciate the culture, because I was just thinking
so young and naive.
Yeah, and I was like, it's just a great trip for me. I'm just being present, but I wasn't really being present. So now it's like I go back and I'm like, okay, like, I can actually, like, appreciate people's culture. I can actually appreciate the art. I can appreciate just being able to be present. And yes, I'll take pictures. And if you do travel, you post after, like, you post when you get back home, so you're safe, you don't post your locations or anything like that.
Because you hear horror stories.
You do hear horror stories.
Especially with women. When women are posting their locations in real time on Instagram, it's pretty scary, because you hear about people getting kidnapped, getting raped, getting this, getting drugged. The list goes on and on. We won't touch on that. But speaking on staying present, I feel that us Christians need to stay more present. I think that social media deviates us from staying there, because we always want to live in the moment, but broadcasting it in real life. So it has to become an Insta story right away. It has to be a post right away. You're at an event, you have to put it on your story, like, in real time. And we kind of rob ourselves from being present. So what happens is we're programming ourselves to not be present in just regular schmegular life on a random Tuesday at a coffee date with your friend that goes to your church or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
And I think that when you are not present in life as a Christian, you miss God in so many different ways. And like, I just wanna experience the move of God. And I told you off camera that I was involved in the street ministry, and I was very present in that season of my life. It lasted about 3 years and some change, and because I was so present in that season of my life, I was able to see God radically change people who gave their lives to Christ in real time. And I could forever have that here and in my heart and in my mind. And I could always talk about it on a podcast. I could talk about it privately with my boys, and share those moments with me without showing a picture, without showing a Snapchat, without showing an Insta story. I could just literally tell them, like, on a literal sense, like, bro, like, I saw a prostitute stop and see what we were doing. She was asking for change because she was down on her luck. And then she heard a sermon. She heard our guitar player playing this worship song, and she gave her life to Christ. Like, you don't see that every day. You know what I'm saying? There was another story that, and I'll make it short, because we're on the topic of mental health. This guy was literally in downtown getting blasted. He was definitely on something. And stopped what we were doing because, again, we were out in the street. We were in the corners of the downtown bar and district area. So he saw what we was doing, and it looked kind of off to him, like, who are these people and what are they singing about in Jesus? Who? And so it turns out that after the service, he walked up to myself and the boys that I was doing ministry with. And walked up to my boy that gave a little sermonette, and said, hey man, I don't know what it was. I don't know what it is that I felt. But if I can tell you something right now, I was planning on killing myself tonight. Oh my. And then he told his story about his wife leaving him and wanting to get a divorce because she was having an affair. And it devastated him. Because he makes six figures. He was telling us he's well off. Money's not an issue. He just loves his family so much, loves his wife so much, and his kids are his life. Like, he's obsessed. Like, he kept saying, he's like, I'm obsessed with my kids. Yeah. I'm obsessed with my kids, but I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I am tired. I am hurting, and the only way that I can just stop hurting is if I just leave this life. And he was really, really moved as to what we said and what he preached and the songs that were being played and by our buddy that led worship. And he raised his hand. He raised his hand and it's like, it's because of you guys that I'm taking a second chance at life, and I'm gonna go to my family and I'm gonna make this work some way, somehow. Amazing. And if I'm not gonna be with my wife, I'm definitely gonna be with my kids. And bro, I was crying and weeping like a baby. I'm about to cry right now.
Yeah.
I'm about to cry right now because, man, being present, man, it's like, you just don't want to miss that.
Right.
You don't want to miss that. Whew. You don't want to miss that because I was in a dark place prior to getting involved in ministry. And I'll talk about that more on my episode that I'm going to have with Zeke. Shouts to Zeke. We're going to talk about mental health, suicide, and all that stuff because I'm no stranger to that. Zeke isn't a stranger to that neither. Me and him got close because we shared our stories with that. And I haven't shared that story with a lot of people because I felt shame. I was looked at the happy guy, the guy that made people laugh, the guy that just was the center of the fun, always knew how to have a good time and always made people laugh. But I was in that, I was dying inside because I was fighting silent storms by myself. And I allowed the noises in my head take refuge, and it led me to a very dark place. So stay tuned for that, and we'll share a lot of what happened. So that's a little teaser for the next episode. But back to being present. You have to be present because when you're absent and you're an absentee in your spiritual life, your flesh does a lot of crazy things, and your voices do play evil tricks on you, and the devil wants you to entertain that, and he wants you to dance with those voices, because it'll kill you. Either spiritually or physically, it'll kill you.
I think one of the amazing things during my journey is when I did get saved. It was actually with our current church. I finally went full throttle. I wasn't lukewarm anymore. Mm-hmm. And I just remember raising my hand, and I'm like, I raised my hand before in the past. This is nothing new, but there was something that this Holy
I call
Spirit,
that rededication.
Yeah, it was just this Holy Spirit moment, and I just kind of raised my hand. And when I got saved, it does change you. Mm-hmm. It does. And being present, my happy place, or where I go to, because I used to isolate very bad. And when I would isolate, I would fall into depression hard. And I used to be medicated, and I no longer am. And I really worked hard to not fall for, to try to be medicated. Yeah. And my time with God is waking up when the sun rises at the beach, being alone, being present. Yeah, I used to do that. There's something just being able to be within God's nature, just going in that water and just
watching His creation,
waking up with the sun. It's the transition from dark to light. Yeah. Because every sunrise is different. Yeah. And
the colors are different.
Amazing. And actually, this is my favorite season to go, because it's so different than compared to the summer. Right. But just being able to be present with Him and building that connection with Him, because I'm trying to learn how to be present again. Yeah. And even though this new I'm entering this new decade of being, being 30 soon. Yeah. It's so fitting that our church's year is revival. Yeah. And I feel like this is I don't want to say a redemption, but I do believe every day is a revival, because you do get a second chance of life every single day. It's never guaranteed. Yeah. And so for me, I think that word, it holds so much weight now than it ever did before, because it went from being reckless to invincible to no, I need to humble myself and be gratitude, be present. And the one place I find that sanctuary is just being with God in the first thing in the morning. Yeah. And kind of just diving in and just saying, thank you, God, for today. Yeah. Or what can I do to serve you? And how can I be a better person? Or what can because that can switch in an instinct. Your mind can take you to so many dark places, but He gives you the tools to kind of push through. Mm-hmm. And I remember last year, I was hearing this from different churches that it's you're either going through a storm, you're entering a storm, or coming out of a storm. And at that time, I didn't know I was going through a storm, but I heard it. Yeah. So I was going through a lot of things towards the end. And if I didn't have those tools, then it would have kind of been a rocky roller coaster if I didn't know God. So I'm definitely grateful for that.
It's great. It's great to be present, for sure, because again, you miss all the beautiful things that God has for you. Yeah. Because we're so caught up in tunnel vision. And it's good to be in tunnel vision at times, and moments, and spurts of moments, but constantly being in tunnel vision could also be taxing to your mental health. You're constantly in tunnel vision. You're constantly on the go. You're constantly trying to make things happen. You're constantly doing this, constantly doing that. And by me just saying that, it's exhausting. I feel exhausted just by saying that. So it's I don't want to get anxiety attacks every other hour of the day. It gets pretty taxing. But it's funny how we you touched on revival because I wanted to speak on that a little bit, but before I wanted to touch on revival, I wanted to ask you, because I ask all my first time guests here, and I hope this is not going to be your first and your last.
If you guys like me, I'll come back.
I want you to come back because everyone that's touched this couch has come back. So I would hope that you would come back. But for all my first timers, I like to ask this question because it's interesting. Is if you were to give your younger self advice, what would it be and why? Ooh. And I know you offline you said that you have a book, a woman's devotional. So, and if you wanted to share that now, or you want to wait till the end? No,
I can share that now. I think it's a very fitting.
What's the name of that? In case people want to ask.
This is a woman after God's own heart.
And then show the camera what it looks like for people who are tuning in.
It's a devotional for women.
There you go.
It's like basically just read something every day.
For those who are tuning in on YouTube.
Yeah, so you can just read every single day.
So it's a little tiny book, so it's easy to carry.
I like to, do it first thing in the morning.
Right.
Like I'm challenging myself actually to read this first, besides going on my phone. So
that's a hardcover, right?
It's a hardcover,
nice. Okay.
And so
Amazon purchase,
or I'm assuming it was a Christmas gift.
Okay.
It's affordable, $4.99.
Hey.
So definitely pick it up because I think it's very fitting.
Yeah.
So my past self, if I can look back, I would have just been like, just appreciate your accolades and basically keep your head down and keep going.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you can, say everything, but it's better to just showcase your actions. Your actions will speak louder than your words.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would tell my younger self.
Yeah.
And then I think today was so fitting because when you asked me that question, I just so happened to open up and the title says, Stop Complaining.
Hey. And we complain all the time.
Yeah. So, FYI, I have an Invisalign on, so I have a lisp. I'm sorry. It's just,
you're good.
It's hard to read with this, so I'm
sorry. Project your voice.
I'm trying. So, it says, I want to say this as nicely as possible. It's time to stop complaining. In Philippians 4:11-13, the Apostle Paul writes, I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether we fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I could do all things through him who gives me strength. Never once did we see Paul quitting, having a fit, or complaining. Regardless of his predicament, he was content. Why? Because he looked to his Savior for strength. The Bible says to be steadfast, always abounding in the work of the Lord. And when you do, you're on your way to becoming the best possible woman you can be, a woman who serves the Lord. And it says a little prayer. Lord, help me look to you for my purpose and my strength. Lead me every day so I can do your will and serve you to the best of my abilities. Amen.
Wow. And so many women need to hear that, I feel like. And not just women, but just Christians or people who are entertaining the idea of okay, what's this God thing all about?
Right.
But I love that that's a woman's devotional, because a lot of women need that, because especially with women being forced to see what the trash that's on social media, and they find themselves comparing themselves with women who are surgically enhanced and looking like a Kardashian, and we spoke about that earlier on. That's so cool, and that's such a great perspective, because it literally shifts you from a worldly view to a spiritual one.
Right.
And there's so much more than looking like a snack. You know what I'm saying?
And I think after having this and kind of doing this repetitively, it's like I'm more laser focused for me and how I can grow as a woman, and I can't allow myself to get caught up with being comparing. And so I try to do things to eliminate that. Like I try to not be on social media. I try to be more present at work. I'm literally busting my butt to change the path of my career, and I'm allowed to because God gave me that path. I mean, he I literally quit my job 2 years ago, and I found a new job that aligns with my values and my faith. And I think that's all God's doing. Right. And He's allowed me to like grow in my career with this company. Yeah. So it's like I'm kind of building and building my future, but this is all through God. Like this is not my path.
Super, super dope that was like the devotional for today. And like when I read certain devotionals passages or even verses, like there's usually words that pop out of me. And the word that popped out of that passage that you read was steadfast. You know what I mean? A lot of us need to practice that. You know? My therapist used to say also, there's power in the ability to pause, like the power of pause. And I'm always on the go, and I always want to like do this, do that, let's go this, let's do that. So like, it gets overwhelming sometimes when you're just always on that wave, right? And I started practicing more of the power of just pause. Just pause for a little bit. You know, appreciate your family, appreciate your loved ones, appreciate those around you, appreciate the life that you have. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate a lot of things that you might have overlooked because you were too busy trying to make moves, trying to make an additional, whatever it is, right? Additional income, residual income, all these other things. We got to pause sometimes and learn how to pump the brakes a little bit because again, we miss the move of God. Right. And I always want to be caught up in God's moving and God's doing. You know what I mean? I want to be present in that because it definitely kind of refills you and it just kind of charges you up again. Right. It kind of stirs your faith sometimes because sometimes we stay stagnant in our faith and we're like, we get discouraged a little bit. But when we appreciate what's going on around us and appreciate what God's doing, through that appreciation, I feel like, man, it stirs your faith. Right. It definitely stirs your faith a little bit.
And I think for me, I think God has, He's cherished, like He gave me cherishable people. Like I've cherished a lot of people in my past, right? They were part of my history. They were there for a reason. But what's exciting or fascinating to know that same people that might have been part of my history will not be part of my destiny because there's changes that's always happening, and I just allow it to happen. I'm just letting God dictate my future and my path, and I think just trying to be more present opens up my eyes to see like what can happen next. So I'm letting go. It's not easy. It's not easy.
It's also not easy to let go of friends that God's calling you to let go.
Oh yeah,
that's a big one, bro.
Oh, we can't talk about that.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not even gonna mention any names, bro. But like, I remember I was in a season where God, like, I literally felt the Holy Spirit just like camp on me and be like, yo, you need to let that individual go. And I'm like, what? I've been his friend for like
forever,
13 years.
I get
it. And for me, it's so hard because I'm a loyal dude, man. I'm so loyal, and I'm loyal to a default. Right. So like, you literally would have to do the most heinous thing to me or my family for me to let you go. Yeah. But when God asks you to let go, when you're comfortable in that relationship, and He says that's not good for you because that person was a seasonal person in your life anyway. He doesn't deserve a seat in your table. The table that I'm building for you, he ain't sitting on there. He's not sitting there. And then I'm like, but he's my friend. You know,
I went from having a group of friends to maybe having 5 to 4.
Like I literally have like the people that I constantly am in constant communication in is the guys that are in my men's group. Yeah. And I'm cool with that. Yeah. Like I'm straight with it, right, JoJo? Yeah. Say it louder for the people in the back. And JoJo's one of them, bro. Like JoJo, I've known the least, but I'm intimate with that guy. And I've never been so intimate with another dude like JoJo there's a short list of people that I have intimate conversation that knows what I'm feeling, what I'm doing. My mom got sick, he knows. I'm going through something, he's gonna know. Relational issues, I'm gonna know because he'll come with me with stuff. I'll come to him with stuff, and I've known him the least. But I don't think time is a precedent to how deep a relationship can get with someone.
Right.
Time means nothing.
Right.
Because you can know an individual for 20 years
Yep.
and be a lousy friend.
Yeah.
But you're just his friend because of time.
Right.
And God's like, you may know him longer, but he's not good for you. He's not fruitful. He won't catapult you to the next levels that I want you to go to. And you need to let that individual go. It's hard because you have history with said individual. You know what I'm saying? So I totally get it. I mean, it's hard to let go of things, but it's super, super hard to let go of people. Because people are attached with feelings, emotions. You're invested in that person.
Time that
they
you
may
can't
know
get
some
back.
things
that's also too.
They may know some stuff about you that you want them to keep to themselves. You know what I'm saying?
But also, you gotta remember, relationships takes work. It's not just in love too. It's also in friendships as well. And actually, a good friend of mine told me the other day, because I can go through some hardships with even some of my closest friends. But you have to remember, like, I had to realize, is this friendship worth fighting for? Like, is it
I've been there.
Yeah, like
been there for sure.
I almost had a crossroads with one of my best friends, and it took a stumble in our relationship. But I was like, am I gonna throw out three years? You know, we've been friends for 3 years, but I'm like, is this worth throwing it away?
But 3 years is a long
it's a long time
nowadays.
too. Yeah.
To be invested to another human being for 3 years is a huge investment. I'm sorry.
But when it's easier when you're aligned in the same path. I think when you have another woman of God, and yes, no relationships are perfect. Right. But if you have the same alignment, you can work through anything.
Absolutely.
So I think it just depends on who you have in your corner, in your circle. Because I've had a friend, one of my high school friends, that I've been friends with her for like 15 years. And I stopped communication with her because we're in different paths. Yeah. And we just drift apart.
Yeah, I had to stop talking to dudes that just wasn't about Jesus, and I'm like, sorry, bruh. Yeah. But you can miss me with that extra noise. Yeah. And I had to slowly kind of detach myself from that inner circle that they were running in, because it was just going to be a detriment to my growth. Right. Or a hindrance to my spiritual growth. Right. You know what I mean? I got to fly with eagles if I'm going to fly with eagles. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh, I like that.
And I can't stay stuck with the crows out there trying to, fly for scraps. I'm not about that life.
And now I don't like birds, but that was a great analogy.
So now that we're winding down to the end of the show, this has been a fun episode, by the way. And thank you again, Georgia, for running the camera. I love you. We want to leave the listeners and the viewers out there, for those who are listening on Spotify and Apple. Shout you guys out. YouTube viewers, shouting you out. We want to leave you with words of encouragement that we like to give the fellow sister, the fellow brother that may be struggling with some stuff. We touched on mental health. We touched on overcoming. We touched on staying present. Yes. And we touched on dealing with our own voices in our head. Yeah. I want to encourage that person that whatever we said on this podcast, whatever resonated in your heart, there's a reason why it did. There's a reason why it resonated in your heart. There's a reason why you're probably contemplating therapy, because you don't want to off yourself. You don't want to hurt others. You don't want to be a detriment to, your family, whatever the case may be. Right. I just want to leave you with this. Your life matters. You are better. Your life is meaningful, and the world that you're living in, that you're sharing with your loved ones, is a little bit brighter with you in it than you outside of it. Yes. So if you're looking for a sign, this is it. And I thank you for sticking around the hour and 20 minutes that we've been talking. And if you got to this point of the episode, this point of the podcast, and you're hearing the sound of my voice, it's coming from God, because I felt like I needed to say that, because I felt like the Holy Spirit is dwelling in this place. And there's a reason why we're touching on this, because there's hurting people out there who are either hurting themselves, contemplating suicide, even contemplating their worth or their identity. Man, just seek help. There's professional help. Get plugged into a church. Get plugged into a healthy community, because you weren't created to do life on your own, because life is way too jacked up to do it on your own.
And lean on each other. You know, if you have a small circle, or you can confine in people, like for me personally, like it took me a while to like lean on others, because I had such trust issues. But once I was able to kind of break down that wall and be able to let people in, it does make a huge difference. And I'm a huge advocate to going to therapy. I think going to therapy sessions, I'm actually looking back to go back into therapy.
I love that. I love when I hear young people say that. Because it took me a while to actually get a therapist.
No, I'm a huge advocate for therapy.
I had my therapist on the show.
Really?
I did.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it does change, and it does help. So definitely lean on others, lean on God first and foremost, lean on God, and definitely go check and like go see a therapist, because I'm a huge advocate for
me too.
health.
I always somehow like sneak it in every episode. Therapy is everything. If you could afford it, if you have insurance, there's actual programs that are affordable now.
Yeah, there's apps.
There's apps now that you can do virtual meets with a trained professional therapist. So look into that. Do your part. Yeah. I think the only thing that God is asking you to do is just do a small part, and He'll take care of the bigger stuff. Yeah.
And just don't give up.
Don't give up. Please don't. If you are in the verge of giving up, reach out to me, please. I'll have a conversation with you. I promise I will make you laugh. All right. But man, this was awesome. We did it. Your first one on the books. Wow. Yeah.
It's just like a normal conversation.
It really is. She was so nervous, bro. She was like, "What am I gonna say? I don't know what I'm gonna do."
I was like reviewing earlier.
But this was very, 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 very fun to do. I hope that you come back. Yeah. So absolutely. Whenever you are ready to come back, come back. I would love for you to come back I'm gonna have multiple panels this year in 2023. That's my announcement, by the way, guys. So 2023, I'm gonna have panels. So we're gonna have like a little, this couch is gonna get a little crowded. Okay. But we're gonna have a panel of people, guys and girls. Probably get some youth pastors and some pastors too, because I want to get everybody of all walks of life to talk about certain topical things: relationships, mental health, suicide, business, discipleship, church culture.
So we're going there.
Yeah, we're going there. We're going there. We're going there. This is what the podcast is all about, is getting, and I said this from day one, episode 1. Fact check me, go listen to episode 1. I would like to start dialogue, and always am an advocate of dialogue, because there's power in words. Yes. There's power in conversation. You can free someone through a conversation. You can save someone's life through conversation. I've physically seen that one-on-one. Like I've seen that. So I just like to get comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations, because there's power in that.
I love that.
Yeah. There's
That's really
certainly,
exciting.
so I get a blow home for that one. But there's power in uncomfortability, and there's power in vulnerability. There's power in transparency, and I believe it in my core that through transparency there's transformation. You're never going to see transformation without transparency. I solely believe that, because I've seen people change once they broke down the walls and once they became transparent.
I
there's transformation in that. That's a byproduct of transparency is transformation. So guys,
you can quote that.
I'll put it on my Insta story.
Yeah, please do, because I like that.
There is transformation through transparency.
Yeah, I want to save it.
But thank you guys again for tuning in. We're going to have a special episode with Zeke. I'm going to tease that. Episode 63 will be with Zeke. It's going to be broadcasted on a special day, and I'm going to have like a flyer promoting that, because I'm not going to air it on my typical Wednesday nights. So it's not going to be aired on Wednesday. I believe it's going to come out on Saturday, February the 4th. So I'm going to tease it now, but I'll plaster it all over my social media. You guys need to share it. And for those who are listening, share it when you see that flyer, because I believe that way too many young people are committing suicide. Yeah. It's at an alarming rate. Yeah. My therapist sent me an article that was scary about, young people committing suicide. His client that he was dealing with, sadly succumbed to those temptations to off himself. So it's alarming. It's an alarming rate, especially after COVID. Those numbers really spiked up after COVID. So we're going to have those conversations. We're going to have liberating conversations that empower, equipped, and encourage people to help one another and speak up for those that are not willing to speak up. Speak up for those that feel they don't have a voice. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to stand on the table and speak up for those that are scared to speak up and say that they have a problem, and they have problems with depression and suicidal thoughts. So I can't wait for that episode. So I'm teasing it now, but look out for that episode with Zeke. He also goes to our church, so he's a real cool dude, very knowledgeable with a lot of different things. He's a motivational speaker by trade, so it's very, very exciting to have him on the show. Thank you again, Christine.
Thank you for having
me. For coming through. Thank you, Jojo, for running the camera. Again, guys, follow if you're new to the show. We're a weekly show. I air every Wednesday night, with the exception of Zeke's episode. That'll be airing February the 4th on a Saturday.
I'm a little in my feelings now.
I want a special day. Only because Zeke works graveyard shifts. He works from 1 to 10. It's crazy. But I had to make special accommodations with him, and the conversations that me and him had privately about the topic, I felt like, bro, this needs to be a podcast. And he jumped on it, and he's all for it. He's creating the flyer for it for the social media platform. So thank you so much for that. But as always, guys, be the blessing, be blessed, and until next time, we'll see you soon. Later.